Hello, who have we got here this evening? I was setting this up for 12:30, and I didn't manage that. So instead of waiting 15 to 17 minutes, here I am. I've just accidentally gone live as you do. So yeah, everything's looking a bit messy at the moment. So I'm thinking, no, I'm not prepared for this yet. So bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just move my video camera over to that side. So we got three concurrent viewers. Not bad considering I'm not meant to be here until 12:30. Okie dokes. Let me just see who else is joining and let's talk retro emulation. So yeah, I think the last time I did a stream was probably around 2 weeks ago. I've been so busy. Um, if I've got any Amiga fans here right now, I've been sort of using AmiKit 12. I've actually done a bit of a, I wouldn't say a deal, but I've been trusted to do a product review. So it's not the first product review I've done on my channel. A little while back, I actually did a Commodore 64 emulation simulation um, products review, and I sent a code for that so I could review the product, and that was Breadbox. Breadbox, yeah, it was actually very good too. So if any C64 fans are here amongst all three of you, check that one out. It's very good, very good. Breadbox, that is. Australia. Hello, Michael. I don't think I've actually had anyone in from Oz before. Whereabouts in Australia are you? Place I'd like to go. Hello, Rascas. Fancy seeing you here. You're never in my streams. um, yeah, place I want to go. Always want to go to Australia, but obviously it's a very long way away from the UK, and it's likely not going to happen. Everyone in my family, apart from my mum and dad, actually has been to Australia. Got family in Australia, like a lot of British has. Uh, so yeah, I'd love to go there. That'd be good. C64 now Rascast. I've got a very, very exciting video coming up. If you're a Commodore 64 nut is bad as me, then you might have heard of a system known as C64 OS, and that's a modern day Commodore 64 operating system. I'm talking to the creator, the developer behind that, as we speak, and it seems like he's gonna throw me over a copy of it so I can do a product review on that and yeah, do a video on it. As you know, in fact, most of retro software, retro games for all platforms is very obscure. Uh, it's a very niche audience, I suppose. Especially things like Commodore 64. When you think of retro gaming, you think of all the generic Nintendo, NES, Super Nintendo, Mega Drive stuff. Whereas myself, and as you probably know, I'm always been a microcomputer geek, and for the reason you can do a lot more of a micro. And I was just saying to my partner just a minute ago, the Amiga in its day absolutely blew away the Super Nintendo or Super Famicom, the Sega Mega Drive through graphics and sound alone. It has massively advanced, massively, especially pairing, say, an Amiga 1200 or 4000 with, say, a Philips CRT monitor. Wow, what a combination! A console seriously couldn't compete with that sort of quality at the time. I don't think they still can. Another good thing about micros is that you'll find many, many, many new games, new releases, new software coming out for micro systems, Spectrum, Amstrad, MSX, BBC Micro, even. Loads of games coming out with the console universe, bit more complex to code for. And of course, with micros, you've got an operating system. As soon as you turn it on, you can start typing in basic assembly language. Whereas with Nintendo, Sega game programming, it's a bit more complex than that. And that's what made Britain so wonderful in the 80s, is that the industry in Britain at the time. was booming. A lot of games coming out. We got Codemasters, who's still around today. Obviously, the Oliver twins from the Spectrum scene in the 80s had a big part of that at the time. So, yeah. Melbourne, yeah, that's actually where my family lives. They live in Victoria. Um, I've actually seen what Melbourne looks like through YouTube videos, that type of thing, and Victoria. It looks really nice there, like really nice. You know what? My cousins from Australia came over a few years ago. I think it was their first time, and it's like, why on earth, really, why on earth would you want to pay to come here? It rains, people look miserable, people's overweight, really, and you call this a nice place? 8-bit computers were systems that you could fully understand. I don't think you could do that with a PC. Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, with micro systems, we talked about registers and numbers and pokes and bytes and bits. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Definitely, you would know the ins and outs of it if you was to program a game in assembly language. Each register, what each thing does, and yeah, I know what you're saying. Melbourne House. Melbourne House. Double Dragon. I'll just say Double Dragon and leave it there, as we know that's one of the worst Commodore games. In fact, probably one of the worst Double Dragon games of all time. Now there's two versions of Double Dragon on C64. You got Melbourne House version, which is diabolical, and now it's pretty much the only game as a kid. I thought it was just shockingly bad, like really bad, pretty much. Then there was Rastan, and simply because Rastan, the castle part of the game with the ropes, it was impossible. Then you had RoboCop, and many glitchy games back in the day. But anyways, we also had Ocean release Double Dragon. They felt so sorry that the poor kids at the time had the shitty Melbourne House version of Double Dragon, that they did a cartridge version of it, which was for that C64 GS failed Commodore system, which was pointless. But there you go. It was a slight improvement if you've not played the Ocean version of Double Dragon. A very slight improvement. It was better, but by no means was it any good. So I actually played that Ocean version a little while back for the first time. And I thought I did an Ocean's Commodore 64 video, and that game was obviously one of the games that still wanted us covering each year of Ocean software. I think it was 82 to 94, I think it was. Their run of Commodore 64 publishing. And yeah, obviously I played every Ocean game, and the Double Dragon game was a part of it. And yeah, let's just say it's very forgettable. But if you've not checked out the Zebo Double Dragon, I've done a setup guide for that. Now Zebo is, let me think, I think it was, can't think off the top of my head, a Brazilian console. I think it was Brazilian, and it wasn't very popular. But anyways, one of the very best Double Dragon games is on Zebo, and you can actually play it now. And yeah, it's really good. So the emulator I covered for it is called Infuse. I uploaded that a little while back, and I don't think it reached. It didn't get as popular as I thought it might, because Double Dragon and most arcade fans, beat 'em up fans, loves a bit of Double Dragon. It pretty much suppose revolutionized beat 'em ups in the arcade, and I suppose after that the Turtles arcade game in Final Fight sort of took over from where Double Dragon 1987 left off. So Raf's cat, yeah, let me show you. You call yourself a Commodore 64 nut? You didn't know that? Let me show you. To find a physical cartridge of Double Dragon by Ocean, it's like gold dust. There wasn't many sold. This is it. This is it's very creative, shall we say? That is literally the box. It didn't come on tape. It didn't come on disc. It's literally the cartridge. And as you can see just here from the gameplay, at least the sprites in the Ocean version, they don't look like their torsos are chopped in half, and you don't have that irritating sound going on. And there's actually music in that version, but like I say, by no means is it any good, because it's not. Yo, JJ, how was your night, buddy? It's all right. I was just saying at the start of this stream, I shouldn't even be talking right now. I actually set my stream for 12:30, and then like a buffoon, I hit the live button, and here I am. I thought I may as well just get on with it now. So, Terra Molinos was a good game from. Yeah, that's. I can see the picture of the game in my head with that Master System version of Double Dragon's best. Yes, I often forget about the Double Dragon on Master System, but it wasn't a bad port. I thought it was pretty good. Uh, from memory, the only issue the Master System version of Double Dragon was uh, it was something to do with you don't see much of the field of play. I Yeah, I know what I'm trying to get. I just can't say what is. But yeah, good port, very good port, and it's such a shame with Double Dragon. Uh, Great arcades game, but the trouble is there is a lot of trash out there. Personally, my all-time favorite Double Dragon is Double Dragon 2: The Revenge on the NES, and of course, I think most people will agree that game is just fucking awesome, man. And then Double Dragon 3 on the NES. That game gets a lot of hate, but I actually thought it wasn't bad. The control mechanics in Double Dragon 3 Rosetta Stone for the NES was pretty strange. But if you got into it, how it played, yeah, it wasn't bad. It was just very tough. And let's see. Speaking of Double Dragon, there is actually a new Double Dragon game coming out. Is it Double Dragon? We had Gaiden come out a little while ago, which was an indie game. So check this out. If you've not checked out uh Rise of, Rise of the Gaiden or something it's called, this one just here, Rise of the Gaidens. It first glance it looks a bit ridiculous. It don't look much like a Double Dragon game. It looks more like a Turtles game that Turtles release we had a couple of years ago. In this release, you get to play as several different characters and new characters. So not only are you playing with Billy and Jimmy anymore, but you get to play with random other characters. But it's such a good game, and it probably ranks, I think, it's one of the best Double Dragon games ever made. Believe it or not. Now, I got an odd feeling. I was watching some the other day, and I got a feeling there is actually, and here it is, a new Double Dragon game coming out. It's Double Dragon Revive. Apparently, it's going to be a 2.5 for 2.5D game by the seems of it. So, Double Dragon Revive. Let's take a look. So I'm not sure if this is proper official images, but it looks like that's from Steam. So yeah, obviously is looking like the thing. So the good thing about Revive then is what you see right now with that arcade system. That's how the game starts apparently. But then you go into all this 3D stuff and it don't look that great. Now, having said that, when Double Dragon Neon came out during the PS3 era, that game was really good. But this one looks a bit overly 3D. So we'll see. I'm a little bit skeptical with this one, I gotta say. But release date for this, it says 2025. Published developer use. So looks like Steam hasn't actually got anything else from that developer. So I don't know. Like I say, we will see. It can't be as bad as what the new Crow film is, anyway. So now, if we got any Crow fans here, going off topic a little bit, you'll probably know about the Crow 2024. So obviously, classic '94 film. And I'm not even going to say I read the comic books because that's just boring. And to be honest, I never have. I just watched the film and I really liked it. I still do. But the trailer for that film, man, it was pretty bad. Yakuza, but co-op. Yeah, Yakuza games. I've never actually gotten into those. I know of them, and I know there's a lot of them. Based in China or Japan, I think it is. Something to do with triad gangs or something, possibly. Kind of reminds me of Shenmue, I suppose. The towns and the shops and everything. Yeah, just reminds me of Shenmue, Yakuza games. Let's see. So yeah, the trailer is enough to put anyone off, to be honest. It certainly put me off. What the first time I seen the Crew 2024 trailer, I was like, seriously? Now the first thing with that trailer, which totally made me think, no, forget it, was the music. Now, back in the mid '90s, three of my favorite soundtracks I'd listened to on CD was The Crow was one of them. It had a great cover of a Joy Division song in it by Nine Inch Nails, which was Dead Souls, and that song plays as Eric Draven is running across the rooftops. Really awesome scene with great Joy Division Nine Inch Nails cover. Also had a Pantera song in it called The Badge, and that song is badass, like proper decent song. The other soundtrack I used to listen to was the Tank Girl soundtrack. Now that that film when it released was slated, and at the time I didn't realize Tank Girl was based on a magazine. I didn't realize that till much later. So, anyways, the soundtrack Tank Girl awesome. I loved it. Devo was on it. Obviously, that really sort of out there, new wave, sort of late '70s, early '80s group. The other soundtrack, which I always used to listen to, was the Trainspotting soundtrack. Just an awesome soundtrack. And that was the days, of course, when films had decent soundtracks, which can't really say much about anymore. And I think The Crow 24 is a good example of that. That's how not to do a soundtrack. And it doesn't even go with the theme of it. You know what I mean? God's sake, man. The new Eric Draven, I mean, he looks like just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I mean, how can you say that he looks good? It's anyways. I'm gonna talk about that one last little bit. It turns out the actor in the new Crow film that plays Eric, he's actually slated to film himself. Now the director is in the background. Um, uh, yeah, the director is in the background and he's trying to defend the film. Now, the lead role of it, he's literally slating the film, saying how bad it is. It's just terrible. It's terrible. I mean, it looks even worse than that that other Crow film. I think it was Salvation with the kid in it, or the man now from Terminator 2, John Connor. So, Michael Sheard, welcome to Just Jamie Next Level. You won't regret it. Thank you for becoming a member. Stay here, stay a while, stay forever. Kansas, hello Kansas. Rev D, how are you doing? You know, guaranteed. I normally get some same people in there when I do a stream. That's good. It's a nice little community builder. But we got some people in here tonight who I've not actually seen before. So we got Michael who's just become a member. Now I'm not trying to sell my membership at all because I'm not. But anyways, if you want to become a member, just Jamie offers memberships. Why do you want to join memberships? Well, one of the things you might be interested in is that a particular membership there's a few different options I put in there, but one particular membership entitles you to a particular video setup guide or tutorial. So if there's a specific guide you want, and I get these demanded from me almost every day, in which case I normally say like no. When someone approaches me on my videos and just cheeky about it, it's like no. Anyways, membership wise, if you need a specific guide, there is a membership for that where I create a video. Um, right now at this moment in time, I'm in the process of reviewing the latest Ami kit, which is an Amiga system. Um, awesome, like really awesome. That's all I'm going to say. But I'm working on the scripts for it and I'm possibly releasing an AmiKit 12 review tomorrow. I've been in touch with Jan, who's the creator of AmiKit, and he's been developing it for around 18 years. I've used the cheaper version, and I've got offered the more expensive version, which is £30. Anyway, so I got the code, and I've been working with it, playing around with it as you do, and it really is a great system. And when I release it, you'll see if you've got any Amiga fans there, you'll see what you're actually putting your money towards. It's probably one of my favorite Amiga systems, AmiKit 12. Okay, so I just want to say this. Um, if anyone wants to donate, which I do ask for occasionally, at the moment, I'm actually focusing on software, that type of thing. Now, any of you has noticed I've been doing a lot of retro style games, so I've had to pay for those. So obviously, it all supports the channel, and yeah, but if anyone wants to donate, if you could send it to PayPal, and I'm always grateful for that. What I'm going to do is just put my PayPal uh, address into this chat. Bear with me, people. Like I said, I started this stream prematurely, as someone once said. That's a word used out of context at the time. Bizarre. Anyways, bear with me. Let's get to this live chat. Okie dokes. Bear with me. Okay, right, there we go. Just put it into the live chat. If anyone wants to donate, it helps the channel out. It buys stuff, videos you get, costly videos. So please, I beg of you, please support Just Jamie to make the channel bigger and better. And to be fair, we're getting somewhere at the moment. 21.4k subscribers I've got as of now. So yeah. Awesome stuff, awesome stuff. Okay, currently a launchbox user and I absolutely love it, but it tends to shit the bed when I'm streaming. Would you recommend switching to batocera? No, I wouldn't. If you're streaming, obviously batocera is an independent front end, so you're not going to have. And let me just think how to say this. No, I'm talking out my ass. What you could do, you could stream with batocera. You'd have to connect it to the TV to screen capture. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I'm living in the 90s at some point. Yeah, so going back to your question, Launchbox tends to shit the bed when I'm streaming. Right, so firstly, firstly, Launchbox as well as Batocera are mainly running off of RetroArch. Um, I always say in my setup guides, or I have done that, probably around 80 to 85% of systems in Launchbox, retrobat, Batocera, all your front ends, around 80 to 85% of your systems you're emulating are retroarch, pretty much. And then you get your exceptions. You get things like teknoparrot, which is obviously an emulator, uh, which retroarch don't have. You also got RPCS3, which is another emulator which retroarch doesn't have. Retro 8 is not that bad, dodgy. It really isn't that bad at all. Um, have you followed my guides for RetroArch? I've done loads. People praises my tutorials for the simplicity. Uh, I mean, RetroArch, it really is a case. Let me just put this down to basics. RetroArch is very simple. You import your games into RetroArch, so that's one thing. Secondly, you'll download cores or a core. So let's say you want to emulate Super Nintendo, Super Famicom with RetroArch. Import your ROMs, and then you would download a core in Online Updater, SNES 9X core, or there's a few different cores, and that's it. And then you just select your game, use the core you just downloaded, and boom. Once you're inside of your game using RetroArch, you can press the F1 button on your keyboard, and that'll bring you into quick menu. From there, you can save and load states. You can play around with your video settings. So RetroArch, like I say, it really isn't as bad as what people think. I think problem is with RetroArch on first glance, it's overwhelming, and it is. It's not necessarily a bad thing. RetroArch offers so much in terms of video settings, controller settings, everything. This is why most systems use RetroArch because it's it's got so much going for it. MUVR. I'm not a VR fan, to be honest with you. It makes me ill, and I tried PSVR years ago. when that came out. My kids liked it at the time. Me though, it just made me violently ill, which is a shame because it had a game on it called oh, what was it? Blood something. It's something to do with a circus. I can't think for the life of me what it was called, but it's kind of like a roller coaster game, and you're shooting down zombies or some sort of ghosts. Wasn't bad. Was pretty good. Now, obviously, nowadays the PSVR looks like the equivalent of what PlayStation 1 games look like. Not very good. Very pixelated, full of polygons, and just, yeah. But it was good in its day. My son, he swears on MetaQuest. He's got MetaQuest 2, and obviously you've got MetaQuest 3, which is a thing now. I think it's actually out now. Uh, yeah, it's a shame because, the world of VR, there's emulation out there for it. You've got the Nintendo NES 3D emulator, 3D Zen, which I've covered a couple of times actually. There's actually a VR version of 3D Zen, very good. So, you know what, dodgy D-pad. If you're a massive Sega Saturn fan, I covered a multi emulator a little while back, and that was um God, I can't think the name of it. There's let me check for you. There's actually a multi emulator, and it's known to be the very best for Sega Saturn emulation. Just looking through my playlist, I've got many playlists, but I've got a particular playlist for uh, multi emulators. Let's take a look. Miscellaneous multi emulator guides. It was BizHawk. So BizHawk, the emulator, is the very best for Saturn emulation. It was either BizHawk or, pretty sure it was, or it was, no, it was definitely BizHawk. You're a Master System collector. I use Fusion. Yeah, Fusion's very good. Kega, is that Kega Fusion? Yeah, I had a Master System back in the day. I got to be honest with you, it's not really one of the one of my personal favorite systems. I had the Master System too. Um, I had it with Sonic the Hedgehog built in. Uh, what did I have back then? I actually have one good memory of the map. Well, it's actually a nasty memory, courtesy of my mum. It was my birthday, and I wasn't very well. I had some money, and I said to my mum, "Can you go out and buy me Shinobi?" She come back with Altered Beast, and I'm like, "Seriously, Ma, you just spent my money on this shit?" So, anyway, she was only doing the trying to do me the right thing. She said at the time they didn't have Shinobi, so Altered Beast it was. Now, to be fair, Altered Beast isn't particularly one of my favorite games anyway. Shinobi is far superior, and it's not actually a bad version on the Master System. And so for Shadow Dancer, that obviously the sequel, spiritual sequel to that. You know what? As a collector of Master System, you might be amazed to know that in Brazil, Master System, Master System 3, is actually still a thing, so it seems. And I think in Brazil, they've actually just released the Sega Neptune, which never seen the light of day, just prototypes. So check that out. The Sega Neptune, which was around the same era as the Saturn, sort of in between the Sega 32X and the Sega Saturn, you had the Sega Neptune somewhere in between. So, so yeah, what did I have on a Master System back in the day? I had Rastan, uh, which was okay. It was certainly an improvement over the C64 version. Honestly, I had, let's see, Sonic 2, which was a very awesome game. I always remember playing Sonic 2 Christmas Day, must have been around 1991, 1992, around that time. I was playing it up in my bedroom on Christmas Day, Sonic 2. Now, hang glider part on the second stage, it was impossible. And it took me ages to figure out how to actually glide using that glider. It turns out you just slowly go down. So every now and again you'll press back on the D-pad. And for some reason it took me hours to figure out how to do that. But anyway, Sonic 2, what a game. And then there was Sonic Chaos, which I didn't have. Also, the Ninja on Master System, one of the early Master System games, was one of my favorites. A very basic but a really cool game. And then you had Transport, which was a Master System exclusive, which was a bit like a mech game. I actually borrowed Transport from a friend at school. Um, yeah, not great, but I'm pretty sure Transport was pretty much the Master System's answer to Transformers. Hence, Transport is pretty much the same, isn't it? So you're currently 121 games out of 275. You know what? Collecting games for all systems these days is absolutely outrageous. I always say the best era for collecting these, especially microcomputers, was the early 90s at car boot sales. Things like Master System and Dreamcast, and one in specific, 3DO. Around 15 years ago, I was collecting 3DO games, and they weren't that expensive. They were really cheap. Nowadays, you look on eBay at 3DO games, and it's just absolute insanity. Just insanity. And I collected 3DO because I loved the quirkiness of the 3DO, and it's a shame it didn't get anywhere. But of course, the 3DO was hard to program for. It was too expensive, very expensive, and Sony did it right with PlayStation. So who knows if Panasonic did it right, or LG or whatever, um, we could have the 3DO 5 today, like PlayStation, but it didn't happen. Instead, we actually got, well, we didn't get, Model 2, a Mark II of the 3DO was a thing. Motherboard was designed for it. It ended up in arcade systems, and that was the M2. 3DO M2, I think it's known as. Like I said, it's literally a board. If I type that into Google, 3DO M2, there you go, Panasonic M2, earlier known as 3DO M2. Multimedia terminal. If you read into it a little bit more, it turns out that it was used in arcades to power particular games, arcade games. So I'm not sure if that's the case of what it was going to look like, or if that's a prototype, or that's someone's personal interpretation of what the Model 2 was going to be. But it's one of the best of that era. Around that era, of course, we had Philips CDI, and just like the 3DO, things was heavily based on FMV games. Whereas I don't think the 3DO had as many FMV games as the CDI did. I mean, the CDI, uh, some of the titles are just ridiculous. I mean, really, horrid retro game memories. Transport is fun, but not aged well. When people say these all games haven't aged well, I don't, I don't know if it's a case of not aging well. I think they're in a league of their own. I think if we look at 3D games starting from that 3D era of around 93, 94, I think, me personally, I'd say that's when games start looking pretty bad, because obviously we're still in the 3D era today, and you can tell where you've got polygons and lines showing. 2D, two-dimensional games, platformers and whatever, like I say, to me, they're the league of their own, and they still look nice. In something like Transport, as long as you're playing it on a proper CRT TV like it was designed for, just looks nice and bright, and Summit, which games today can't compete with in greatness. Classics, yeah. M2 looked like a VHS player. Yeah, it does a little bit. Like, so I'm not sure if that's the official case for it. Um, but with failed systems, you'll get things pop up like that. There's been several over years where people's come up with their own designs. If you remember, before the Xbox 360 released, or it was even given a title, It was rumored that it was actually going to be known as the Xbox 720, and at the time you got loads of people online uh, coming up with images and claiming it was going to look like that. Eventually, it didn't look like none of this. We also had that for yeah, most consoles. AI games be the future. You know what? I've got no time whatsoever for the world of AI. No time at all. I think some things should stay traditional, and to me, AI isn't great. It's nasty. But that's me. I just, when you hear a Marilyn Manson song being performed by Elvis Presley, I think that's a little bit weird. So that's why I just keep away from it. I've watched YouTube documentaries in the past, and you're listening to it, AI speech, and you're thinking to yourself, is this person real or what? And then it's not until you get to the points where you can hear they're clearly not pronouncing things properly, worse than my Bristolian uh, Southwest British accent mispronunciation. But with AI, things aren't that accurate. And if you're not knowing of a particular subject and you're relying on AI to pronounce something, you're not going to decipher if it's right word to use, pronunciationism, or it's a wrong way to say it. So yeah, that's yeah, pretty deep stuff. Okie dokes. So what have I uploaded today? Um, we've had a lazy day today, and the reason it's been a fairly lazy day today on the world of YouTube is because yesterday I did a Coffin OS setup guide for WinUAE. Um, a troll on Facebook actually was trolling me and giving me a hard time for that. Uh, anyway, that's social media for you. You get pricks like that around. Um, so I was working all day yesterday on Coffin OS, and that took me ages to understand how to use that properly. And today I just thought, you know what, let's just do some gameplay. So I did a Metroidvania game, which I literally uploaded 47 minutes ago. That's Forsaken Castle. Seriously awesome 16-bit Metroidvania style game. And earlier today, I uploaded a fan game called Mushroom Kingdom Fusion. Seriously, check that video out. It's iconic. It gives you loads of different iconic characters of old systems like Nintendo and Sega. You can play with characters such as King Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins, Ghouls and Ghosts. You can play as Wario, apparently Link. I'm playing it for the video, and all of a sudden I'm playing with the background of Altered Beast, and I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? This game is trippy. But the fusion of playing as Mega Man, shooting Dr. Robotnik's machines in the world of Sonic the Hedgehog, it's bizarre, but it works so well. And I seriously recommend Mushroom Kingdom Fusion to anyone. It's a free download. I've not linked it in the video for legalities, that type of thing. So just Google that Mushroom Kingdom Fusion. It is awesome, like properly awesome game. Very, very hard. In fact, let me just post that. Bear with me. This is what I do. Yeah, if anyone wants to watch the gameplay of it before downloading that one, I'll just link it in here. And seriously, that game will make you angry. It's not very often. In fact, it's not very often at all. I bang my hand on the table, but that game caused me so much rage earlier on. It literally did. I just thought, and that's the beauty of retro games. They're just hard, aren't they? And damn. So you've got all these kids playing Fortnite and stuff, whinging because someone's just shot them. And it's like, come on, man. And then you get real hardcore games like this game I've just just done today, and it's like there's a big difference between toughness levels. Retro games were tough. Kids back then had balls of steel just to play some of these games. Oh no. So, um, yes, going back to my next uploads, I done Coffin OS yesterday. A couple of days ago, I did Amiga OS for Windows install, which is pretty good. And I did a RetroArch Amiga game selector set the other day, so everything's very Amiga at the moment, very Amiga. But anyways, as a Commodore geek, then it's to be expected. So one peculiar thing I found is that normally when I upload Commodore stuff, someone dislikes, literally, quite literally, will dislike every Commodore video I've done. But the last couple of Commodore videos, they've not had that dislike. And I'm thinking, well, either I've blocked this person because I get trolls on my channel and that idiot is gone, or I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But you know what? Sometimes it feels good to know that you're pissing someone off. Okay, so who else is here at the moment? We got Rev D. Rev D still here. You know what I'm like for people. It's normally on my streams. I go off on one and I talk for about an hour, and then start with one bit of the conversation and end up with something else. I'm really a friendly person. If I go out to the shops, I normally talk to people, and I get that from my dad. I think it's runs in my family. We're very sociable people. Um, but that's all British stuff, which is a thing of the past, I think, today in Britain. We're not allowed to be traditional anymore. So, yeah, that's another story. Hello, Clint, in Liverpool. How are you doing? So, yeah, Clint, if you're new to the channel, plenty of Commodore content. What I've done in the past, I've done loads of Commodore stuff. What is your favorite C64 loading screen picture? That's an interesting one. Something I don't get asked very often. I would probably, I don't know. I mean, with the loading screen pictures, it's a combination to me between the picture and the music. So as a kid, um, I tell you what, no, no, let's make this more interesting because pictures, loading screen pictures, to me, they was all great. Let's take this further. There's Ghostbusters by Masteronic Ricochet label, and that game had invader loads. That's no that's no picture. That's if you remember that game, loading it, you'd actually play Space Invaders with one man and his droid music in the background, which was really impressive. That used to really impress me as a kid. It's like, wow, I'm loading a game, and as I'm loading it, I'm playing a game. It's like this is incredible. And I'm pretty sure that was on the Tau Ceti Masteronic Ricochet label as well. Yeah, man. So, Clint, if you didn't hear what I said earlier on, if you just joined, I'm literally in the process right now of a review for AmiKit. So I'm not sure what type of Commodore fan you are. Obviously, we got Commodore PET right up until the Amiga CD32, or technically starting off with Commodore watches in the 70s. So, um, yeah, AmiKit is an Amiga system, so I'm in the process of reviewing that, and trust me, it's worth it. Watch the review when I release that either tomorrow or the next day. Yes, loading a Ridge Racer on PlayStation 1 also had that. Was that Gallagher or something like Gallagher on Ridge Racer? I had the platinum disc of that in the mid 90s. It was with my PlayStation, and I used to play the shit out of Ridge Racer. It was mind blowing at the time how realistic it looked. C64 and Amiga, yeah, same here. Um, Commodore 64 first, and then Amiga second, and that's likely because C64 was my first machine I had ever. The Amiga, wow, just amazing stuff. Let me just tell you, I've actually come across a website. It's amazing. If you look for stuff, it's amazing what you find. I actually found a magazine called Amiga Addict. I got this, Clint, in WH Smith. You're obviously in Britain, Liverpool, so you have Smiths where you are. This is Amiga Addict magazine. I think it was, yeah, 6.99. This is issue 31. Anyways, on the back of this issue 31, we have got a website called Checkmate, and Checkmate manufactures cases for Amiga computers. So you can either buy a case designed for a Raspberry Pi setup, a real ITX motherboard. You can actually get them built for real Amigas like the 1200. They're fairly expensive, but they look very robust cases. Now, if you want it to look a little bit better using some like AmiKit, put AmiKit on an old computer, take the case off, and then buy a Checkmate. Let me show you how good these look. So, if you check out the cases, they're not identical to Amiga cases. They got their own sort of quirkiness about them. But looking at the case just here, that's really reminiscent of the 1000 model. I think it was 1000 model, the first Amiga released in 85. Uh, there's plenty of reviews as well on YouTube for Checkmates. Now, let's see, shop monitors. They also, interestingly, do a new CR monitor to go with it. So these just here are, yeah, it says awaiting stock. So personally, I would love to own one of these monitors. I mean, look at that. That's so cool. It's got that creamy beige white, totally 90s, even 80s. And look at them, just awesome. And it's not every day you find someone making things like screens, emulation machines, they're two a penny, but these, it's like, whoa. Anyways, Checkmate. So they do cases, they obviously do monitors, as you can see. They also do complete setups, and I dearly want one for Christmas, like all in one with the monitor and everything, but it's not going to happen. Too expensive. But anyways, they actually do it all in one, and it gets shipped with Aros. So Aros is like a almost like an Amiga modern revisioning of Amiga OS. Ghostbusters, yeah, I had Ghostbusters on C64. I wasn't a big fan of it. I thought it was for a kid of my age, it was very financial at the time. Obviously, you had to buy bits and pieces for the Ecto one, and I just didn't really think much of that one. Ghostbusters 2 was pretty bad as well. The real Ghostbusters wasn't a bad game. I had that on the Hit Squad label, which is pretty rare, I think, today to get the Hit Squad label of real Ghostbusters. C64, let me show you. Right, I'm going to go proper geeky on your asses now, but let me show you some. This is ultra, ultra awesome. This is what I'm asking for Christmas. This is the Ultimate 64. The Ultimate 64 is a modern day motherboard for Commodore 64. Uh, the Mark 1 just here is out of stock, but the Elite 2 is in development. So this is what I'm hoping for Christmas. Now, you can see it's got sockets on here. What this does, it allows you to put two SIDs in, so a couple of different revisions of the SID from different models of Commodore. But anyways, you don't need to put any chips in this whatsoever. If you power it on, it's got sound on it, but you can literally put your own stuff, your own SID chips in it. Now, if you pair this with, seriously, check this out. You will love this, Commodore fans. This is Plexi Laser. This is a website. They're not in Britain. They're in, I think they're Deutsch, Germany, possibly Germany. This is such an awesome website I've come across. Right, that Ultimate 64. This is a case for it. Look how cool this is. Issue is, this is the size of a bread bin. A little bit smaller than a bread bin. Look how sexy that is. Now, the good thing with this is if you see on the top of the case where the fan vents are, it says Ultimate 64. What you can do, you can actually order these in the text for ventilation slots and literally get them to sketch in whatever text you want. But the annoying thing is, with this particular bread bin shape, is that it won't fit the upcoming Elite 2. It will only fit the older one, which is out of stock. In by the seams of it, obviously the Elite 2 is awesome. It's got many updates on it, new features such as internet built in to the Elite 2. Anyways, for the Elite 2, we've also got another C64 case here, which is a little bit bigger, and it almost looks like the size of, I suppose, an Amiga 500, or let's say Commodore 128. Now, I've looked further into this, and there's actually a new way of getting Commodore keyboards, and that is called mech boards. Check this out. You can literally build a new C64 from scratch in 2024. I think it's incredible. This is the mech board 64. Check this out. These are very expensive, and it comes with the membrane, I think, underneath. Not sure if it comes with the caps with the keys on it. But anyways, that's the mech board. So you've got your new case, you've got the motherboard, which comes with a PSU, modern PSU, and you've got the mech board. And that's it, you're pretty much done. So, obviously, putting all this together is not cheap. Let's just say, for example, that larger size acrylic case here, €64 in Britain. That's probably around £60, which isn't a bad price, but these are DIY. So they come disassembled, and you can actually get these in a smoked look. It's just awesome. But anyways, if you're interested in those acrylic cases, if you check their website out, you've even got stands there. That's a C64G model. I think that's a German Commodore 64. But anyway, you get stands for them. We also got cases for the Vampire, which actually covered, partly sort of covered yesterday for the Amiga. We got an Amiga 1200 case and even an Atari XE case just there. So a very good find. And yeah, definitely worth checking out this website. But yeah, if you look for stuff in the community, it's amazing what you can find out there. Okay. OLED screens. You know what? The laptop I'm using right now is an OLED screen. I've never had an OLED before. Uh, but really, they cost more. But the picture you get, as you know, it's amazing. The whites and the blacks are really something else. And I've got a QLED TV, and it's not as good as OLED. Nowhere near it. So OLED really is the way to go. QLED, it's kind of like I think it's the manufacturer's own sort of brand of OLED. But yeah, if anyone wants to buy me a Sony OLED or a Panasonic OLED, say 52-inch TV, I'll be very happy. Really awesome. And so you know what, Rascast, even the BBC Micro for years now, it's got new stuff coming out for it. BBC Micro, obviously you've got basic or you've got assembly language, and it's got the BBC Micro, a little bit like Super Nintendo, it's got modes in it to switch kind of resolutions for programming games. So there's BBC Micro games coming out. There's active forum for the Micro, BBC Micro, which is a Starlight. I think it's Starlight Forums. Um, there's fair enough, they're a very geeky audience, the BBC Micro people. They tend to be very old, grumpy people. More grumpy than me and more older than me. I mean, let's face it, the BBC came out in the very early 80s and they were very expensive, like really expensive. Hence why you've got the ZX Spectrum, which was a hell of a lot cheaper than the BBC Micros were. But yeah, BBC Micro, there's a SD device where you put all your games onto it, and it's got its own interface on it. You plug this in, and it gives you almost like a teletext CFAX type display, sort of cute, nostalgic. But in terms of cases, that type of phone, I'm not actually sure if the Micro BBC Micro Model B or whatever has got any computer cases, but we got a website here, Retro Nerd. So we got our very nice Kumalo looking monitor there. Now, this is one shocking thing I hate with BBC Micros. I love the look of these systems. The annoying thing is that on the keyboard of these back in the day, people would tear away the little slot just there. What this slot was to actually plug ROM chips into, quite literally. So interchangeable programs. If you wanted a program for school, like I don't know, let's say Mavis Beacon, you just pop it into that little port just there and type in run whatever, and it's loaded it already, like a cartridge, I suppose, but only in chips. So yeah, talking about BBC micros in Commodore 64s, I'm losing my viewers, which is understandable. Because yeah, anything Commodore, anything like that, I'll really go off on one. So I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. Hello, gimmicks. How you doing? I've not see you in the stream before. You should stop by again. I try and do these every week, but it don't happen all the time. Life gets in the way, and like I say in streams before, it's very hard to determine the time to do these because of my American audience is greater than the British audience, and yeah, it's really hard to sort of work out the best time to do it. It's personally around 4 or 5 in the morning is the good time when a lot of my videos get viewed. But really, I can't be asked to get up that time in the morning or even stay up to that time. So, what do you do? And to be honest, people, I'm going to be off now. As my regulars here will know, I tend to do an hour. And after that, because I talk so much, which isn't a bad thing, I'm sure someone talking's on a live stream's rather better than watching someone doing nothing and talking, just looking at my face or something. So at least I'm doing something, I'm talking. But anyways, that's it. I'm going to be off, I think. Very briefly, I went to a sci-fi museum and noticed that one of the TARDIS layouts used BBC microkeys. Probably did. But having said that, during that era, I noticed a lot of keys looked very similar. It's like you got Russian computers, era, uh, Soviet Union era keys. If you look for Russian technology around if you look for Russian technology of the early 80s, keyboards, the keys on them literally looked all the same, very much like BBC Micro. But anyways, that's it. I will be back next week, and until next time, stay retro.